lot of businesses, as you point out, have not been so advantaged during the course of the past 15 or 16 months. And as a result, it's the trials and tribulations of that period that have led to really dramatic change, in some cases, dramatic change for the good, acceleration of digital transformation, accelerating the development of new digital means of collaborating with customers, digital revenue streams, digital means of gauging the health of the operation and of employees, and so on. You mentioned yours is an organization that's done quite well. If anything, demand increased as people learned to cook, as you pointed out, as options to eat out, for example, were limited for quite some time. I wonder, actually, in light of those circumstances, did your organization have any sort of similar push towards a broader acceleration of digital without Winston Churchill's whole notion of don't let a good crisis go to waste? It wasn't necessarily a crisis to your company. So I'm curious how that translated into an organization like UNFI.
Yeah, some of that, whether we wanted it to or not, we were forced into it. So we still have a couple of banners, although we've stated publicly our ultimate strategy is to divest. Super Value had a number of retail customer banners. I think in general, we would say we don't like to compete with our predominant customers by being a retailer ourselves. So ultimately, we'll likely divest those last two. But just having them with us, we saw everything going on at retail, and obviously we were the benefactor of all of the demand being pulled through by our retail customers. But it also forced us, even in our strategic or go forward business, to expand and exploit our own e-commerce channels. One thing I find very interesting is that by and large, restaurant wholesale has already largely digitized or gone to e-commerce, while grocery had not. And I sort of attribute just my own analysis that to a couple of factors. One, grocery, just because of its scale, had already digitized, unfortunately, a couple decades ago via EDI. So the vast majority of our ordering and order processing is already digitized, even though we wouldn't really think of that as e-commerce. But we're not really taking many orders by phone or fax or any other method. It is already electronic. So the push to a more contemporary, let's call it, e-commerce paradigm has been less. However, we do have, a small growing business of e-commerce that is B2B with our retail customers. Again, because restaurants tend to be more fractured and they are buying smaller volumes much more frequently when they've got to resupply the thing they just went out of. When you're ordering for shelves and shelves, that's much more plannable. You have better forecasting, and you have to have electronic support via EDI and other channels. But restaurants were able to go to typical e-commerce sooner. But what we found is that there is still a need, even with a grocery retailer, to either make small exception purchases. So, for example, think of our natural customers. They like to procure a lot of local product and assortment, adjacent or proximate to a particular retail store. They want the regional assortment from perhaps local farms or local suppliers. Well, that lends itself to e-commerce very well when you're not buying an entire truckload from a distribution center that's more traditional volume wholesaling. So we had already started and established an e-commerce business available to all of our customers that then is fulfilled through traditional, parcel or the commercial carrier, packages. So it could be small piece pick, maybe larger up to a half pallet we might send, via, a more typical third-party logistics provider. But all of it is think of it box sizes versus pallet sizes. That exploded as well. We had a very good year, not unlike what retailers saw from consumers ordering online when they didn't want to risk entering a store or deal with, masking and the rest of it. They could stay in their car, they could do curbside or even delivery. So a lot of what I think we saw in restaurants and consumer channels we started to see as well in our B2B wholesale channels.